As the days go on and you realize that like you get closer to your dream, either your dream continues or your dream ends. And moments like this is what makes champions.
MVP, first team All-NBA, scoring champion, Western Conference Finals MVP, Finals MVP, champion, 2K26 cover athlete, SB for best male athlete. It is safe to say that 2025 has been the year of SGA. On top of all that, he got his first signature shoe with Converse, a brand that desperately, and I mean desperately, needs an athlete like Shai if they're ever going to be relevant in the basketball space again. Now I know most of us think of Converse as a lifestyle brand, arguably the most iconic lifestyle brand of all time, but the truth is their true starting blocks, their true essence is in the game of basketball. I mean, from like the 1930s to the 1970s, everyone was wearing the Converse All-Star. Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, wearing the Converse All-Star. The All-Star was kind of like the first ever real basketball shoe. But for as essential as basketball has been in getting Converse to where they are today, the truth is nobody thinks of them as an athletic brand and nobody thinks of this as a basketball shoe. I mean, obviously part of that is because the technology of the shoe is a bit outdated, but the real reason is because in the 1970s, the shoe became a lot more synonymous with people like artists, skaters, and musicians, and that led to all the biggest bands in the world wearing Chucks. So obviously that led to Converse branching a little bit away from basketball and becoming one of the most iconic and recognizable brands in all of American society. I feel like a lot of that had to do with the affordability of the shoe combined with the simplicity of the design, but to me it's just crazy how up to this point, Converse has not only survived, they've thrived, and the numbers don't lie. In 2021, they posted their best-selling year of all time. Again, we'll get to that in a second as well, but it's just crazy to me how Converse has really withstood the test of time. So why the hell do they need a basketball shoe? To me, the answer is kind of simple. Converse use their basketball department in the same way that someone like us would view maybe the love of your life, your firstborn child, or maybe that small business that you just started. You know, you just love it so much and under no circumstance do you feel ready to give up on it. Now look, for as sweet as that may sound from Converse's perspective, the reality of it is they will never be a major player in the basketball space again unless they get two things right. And the good news is they already have one. They needed an athlete like Shai, and they got Shai. Now, I think Shai is the perfect athlete for the Converse brand. We'll get into reasons why later. Yes, some of it is self-explanatory, but they needed Shai, they got Shai. The second thing that really worries me is something that I view as an Achilles heel in the entire history of Converse's modern day brand, specifically in the basketball space, and that's the fact that I don't know that they can market an athlete like Shai to the extent that they have to in order to create a transcendent type of product and a transcendent type of movement. If they're ever going to compete with the modern day major players in the basketball space, they must learn from their past mistakes. Now look, pre-Jordan, everyone was wearing Converse. Like I said, they were the premier brand in the basketball space. They had Dr. J at the time, who was one of the greatest players of all time, definitely one of the most iconic players of all time, wearing the Converse Pro Leather. He was actually the first NBA player that they ever signed, so the brand was thriving and it didn't look like they were going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, they even had Jordan himself in his UNC final wearing the Converse Pro Leather. Then they went on and signed Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, two of the best players of all time in two of the biggest markets. They were the two faces of the NBA in a time where the NBA needed two guys like this desperately, but they never marketed these guys to the extent that they deserved. I mean, Magic Johnson himself had a major issue with the way he was being marketed. He said, and I quote, "Converse as a company is stuck in the 60s and 70s. They think the Chuck Taylor days are still here. They haven't arrived in the 80s and 90s where advertising and marketing are the keys." And Magic definitely had a point, because in the 80s when Jordan started to pop off a bit, Converse's answer to that was the Converse weapon. They had athletes like Kevin McHale, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson on the roster, and still they weren't really able to make a dent in the competition. They had a couple good commercials with Larry and Magic, but that's really the furthest extent of what I could find, and that's kind of a part of the problem. I really think the big issue is that there's a lack of an individuality in these guys' shoes, right? They are trying to push a brand and not the athlete. Jordan exploited a lot of things. Once you were able to realize that people connect more with the athlete and less with the shoe, obviously the shoe is important, but connecting more with the athlete is the most important, right? Obviously nowadays, if Converse had these guys under the roster competing with a brand like Jordan, Isaiah Thomas would get his own shoe, Larry Bird would get his own shoe, and Magic Johnson Johnson would get his own shoe. And the problem is they were all wearing the same exact shoe. And because of that, they were all marketed together. And that's a major problem because when you look at this commercial, yes, it has the whole roster in it, but it really creates a real lack of individuality. You look at Larry Bird and Magic Johnson's commercials, they were done together. Yes, there's a little bit of that, but not enough. Magic should have his own set of commercials. Larry and Isaiah should as well. I mean, that's what you would do nowadays, but back then, Converse was trying to win a game by playing by the same old rules, and obviously that backfired. They were so used to the brand itself being bigger than the athletes wearing it, I mean, partially because they dominated the basketball space for so long that they were not ready to adjust when the time came. And even in the 2000s, they had Dwayne Wade, who was looking like the next face of the NBA, fresh off a championship, had his own shoe with Converse. I'm not sure how many of you guys knew that, but yeah, I feel like my young brain at the time never really processed that he was with Converse. I never saw a commercial, I never saw the shoe in stores, and I think that's kind of, I mean, obviously they probably had the shoe in stores, but it never made a dent in my young brain, like I said. And I think that's a major part of the problem that Converse has been dealing with from the 1980s, honestly, till now. But what's interesting to me is that in 2001, Converse filed for bankruptcy, and in 2003, Nike purchased them for $305 million. Now, the reason that that's significant to the current discussion is pretty obvious, because Nike is the premier brand in the basketball space. Now, look, maybe they've fallen off a little bit as of late, but they're still probably the best, right? And they've marketed all the best guys at the highest level. So, to me, it makes perfect sense for them to help Converse here in the marketing of Shai. I haven't seen them do it for Converse yet, at least really at that level, but you have a guy who looks like he could be the next face of the NBA coming off the biggest year of his career. I mean, why not capitalize on your investment and really build Converse basketball? I don't know if that's maybe a conflict of interest, but to me, I feel like Converse is the origin story of basketball shoes, so who doesn't love a good redemption arc? And I feel like it's definitely possible with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. In my last video, I talked about the 5 necessary pillars in order to successfully market an athlete in today's game. The 5 are personality, authenticity, followed by success on the court, and then innovation and execution on the actual marketing and design side of things if you want to successfully start a movement in today's sports world. And I mean, with Shai, let's look at the easiest one on the table. Success on the court. I mean, he's had one of the best years we've seen in a very long time. I had no idea while I was doing the research for this entire project that the last player to win Finals MVP and MVP in the same year was LeBron James in 2013. I thought Jokic did it, but it was actually in 2023 when Embiid won MVP that he won Finals MVP. So we haven't seen a year like this in a very long time. I think of Giannis's year where he won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same year. That's a big deal as well, but I think this is better because it's followed by a championship and a Finals MVP. That means a lot more in my opinion. And then when you look at personality, I personally feel like no one is more built for this new era of fans than Shai is. Definitely someone like Ant as well. I'd say they're almost tied. But Shai, you're talking about Mr. Aura himself, right? The guy with cool Instagram captions, the guy with cool post-game quotes, the guy with all the TikTok edits. So yeah, I just feel like Shai really resonates with the younger generation. Like I said, so does Ant. But with Shai, I feel like, I don't know, he kind of reminds me a lot of Kobe, and a lot of people say that about Ant and MJ, but Shai talks a lot like Kobe, acts a lot like Kobe. I grew up idolizing Kobe. I love his confidence, probably the most confident person I had ever seen in my young age, right? So with Shai, I definitely feel like a lot of people resonate with that confidence. Sure, some people might find the Instagram captions corny, or they might find his personality as overplayed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think for the majority of people, it resonates, and I think that it does feel authentic. I mean, also lately when he's won these awards, he's not trying to play up this character in his speeches, and I think that that has actually maybe helped perception of him a little bit. Definitely after he won the championship as well. It feels like, I don't want to say a mask came off because, like I said, the confidence does feel authentic, but it almost feels like he's showing the world this other side of him that is maybe who he is more behind closed doors. You know, after he won his MVP, he had a very sweet speech talking about his wife.
Haley Summers, you were the first person to show me what love really meant. I wouldn't be the man I am, I wouldn't be the player I am, I wouldn't be the father I am without you, and thank you for that.
After he won the ESPY, he kind of like messed up on stage.
And my village has nothing been short. Wow, I am messing up here. Okay.
In the parade and stuff, you kind of saw a different side of him a little bit. And I think that that not only helps people like resonate with him more, but it actually helps that ultra confident side of him as well, and maybe helps that land better with the public, because people know it's like, oh, he's not always like that, or maybe like he's just like that on the court, and it allows people to understand him a little bit better. I don't know if I just made any sense. I hope I did. But to me, that's how his personality and the authenticity combine. Now, as far as the innovation and execution on the actual design and marketing side of things, I do want to give Converse a ton of credit. Maybe it did sound like I was being a hater earlier. That was definitely not the case, and it was not on purpose. I was more so just saying everything that they did wrong up to this point. But as far as with Shai, they've treated him unlike any guy they've treated on the history of their basketball roster. And I think that that's great. I mean, you have to do that. It shows an evolution in the brand, and it also shows learning from your past mistakes, which is very important. But with Shai, you have a guy that you have an outside of the box kind of athlete, so you have to think outside of the box as well, because you're a brand that is nowhere near the heavy hitters. So what do, right? You have to be different. And I think that they've definitely embodied a lot of that. I've loved a lot of the things they've done. Like, for example, this is a small one, but they named Shai the creative director of the entire Converse basketball department in 2024. It's weird because Shai is the only athlete that I can personally think of in the league that would thrive in a role like that. Like, that is something I could see for his post-retirement life. He is actually passionate about fashion, and it is something he takes very, very seriously. I mean, for example, I read something while I was doing the research on all this, and I thought it was really cool. And I quote, "You've heard over and over again how closely a brand works with an athlete to create a new shoe. Typically, the athlete communicates what they want, and the designers come back with some options. Shai took matters into his own hands by providing his own sketches." Stephen Keating, the Converse design director, said, "I've been working with athletes for 20 years in this field, and I've never met an athlete that can sketch like Shai. So it's clear that Shai has a gift when it comes to fashion, and by naming him creative director, it only integrates him deeper into the core of the brand, into the heart of the brand, right?" And I think that that's super important if you want to build a lifelong relationship with an athlete. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this guy's name, but look at what he did with Gap and Adidas. He really elevated both of those brands. And I know this might sound crazy, but I actually think Shai could do the same thing with Converse. And I think Converse is actually the perfect brand for it because of how prominent they are in the lifestyle department. And I don't know if you know this, but Shai has his own clothing brand called Unseen Being. That collection is actually crazy. I actually think it's better than what a lot of Converse currently does. And for me, I don't see any reason why you don't collaborate with Unseen Being and give him his own, catalog or tab on the Converse website. It's very, very similar to what Puma does with LaMelo. He has his own clothing brand called La France, and it's a lot of their best-selling stuff on their website. I mean, it is very well received, and I like it because it empowers LaMelo within the brand in the same way that Converse should be trying to empower Shai. And then when you look at the actual design of the Shai 1, I actually really like it. I think some people kind of have mixed feelings about it. For the most part, I think it's been pretty well received, and what I like most about it is that it is unique. In a world where basketball designs feel so recycled and so overdone at this point, anything that feels different and still doesn't feel like you're doing too much is actually very, very nice. I think that keeping it simple with the colorways has probably been my favorite part. The zipper, I think, is probably what rubs people the wrong way for some reason, but I like the simple colorways. I like how they look on Shai on court, and I actually like that he has styled them a little bit, like walking through the tunnel and stuff. For the most part, he was wearing his shoe, and I think that that's cool. It kind of gives people ideas as like, wait, maybe I could wear this off the basketball court. And to me, that's actually where you could really separate yourself if you can branch out and be like, we're actually not just a basketball shoe. It looks good on regular clothing. I'm not sure if I would be able to wear it, but it's definitely stylable. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the shoe is nice in my opinion, and it's unique, and I feel like you have a unique play style, you have a unique player, then you have to make a unique shoe. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of what Reebok did with Allen Iverson. They kind of tried to, go outside of what's already been done, and I think that Converse is doing a really good job with that. While it is unique and maybe a little bit different, they've kept it really, really simple with the colorways, and I really, really, really love that every colorway means something to Shai, and it allows the audience to connect with him on a deeper level and understand him on a deeper level. And yeah, I mean, I think that the design is great and the whole backstory behind it is awesome as well. I might have already said this already, but I really appreciate how Converse is really trying to think outside the box when it comes to everything Shai related, right? We look at the commercials, we'll get to them in a second. You look at the logo, it's very unique, very different, unlike anything we see in the current basketball landscape. My favorite thing so far has definitely been like the bat light or the bat signal, whatever you want to call it. I think they did it during All-Star break, and I think they did it after the Thunder beat the Celtics, where they put Shai's logo on Boston's arena, which is cool. I think it's unique. We haven't seen anything like this done, really, and the fact that Converse is the one doing it makes it more fun. It makes it more exciting. It's a brand that desperately needs to hit a home run, and they're really going for it in those types of ways. When you look at the commercials, or maybe you want to call them promos because I haven't seen them on TV, but when you see these promos for each colorway, it really, I love it. I love the backstory. I love the storytelling. I love how much they care. I talked about it in my last video with Adidas and Ant. I love how much Adidas cares. This really shows me, as a brand, Converse really gives a damn, and I think that that's awesome. They're telling a unique story in every single promo. And like I said earlier, each colorway is connected to someone that Shai absolutely loves. The blue colorway is for his brother, the gray colorway is for his son, the clay colorway is for his wife, and the black colorway is for his mom. And each color is very specifically chosen for each person. There's a story behind the colorway, there's a story behind everything, and I think that that's awesome because, like I said earlier, it connects the audience deeper with the athlete. And then after OKC beat the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, I actually really like that Converse dropped this commercial as well. Obviously, the Ant is alluding to Anthony Edwards, nothing left to say, and then the punchline being unbelievable is obviously a play to Anthony Edwards' punchline, which is believe that. There's a little rivalry brewing between Adidas and Converse, and I really love that it's between the two guys that I said earlier that resonate most with the youth, the two most confident guys in the league, kind of, right? And I think that this could be the next great rivalry of the NBA, to be honest. When your guy beats that guy, you have to capitalize, and I like that Converse did. Lastly, I'm going to take a page out of Adidas's book here with Anthony Edwards. They did a great job of marketing him in Minnesota and Atlanta, where he plays and where he's from. I'm not sure if Converse has any plans to push Shai in Canada, but that should be a major priority. I believe Drake just posted the shoe on his page. Like, you have to have a plan to push the product in Canada. That is probably where you will get the most sales, obviously right outside of OKC. So I would love to see them really try hard and create demand and create buzz in Shai's hometown in Canada. Can SGA revive Converse basketball from the dead and create a movement that really garners some sort of traction and buzz, similar to what, like I said, Allen Iverson did with Reebok and what Steph Curry did with Under Armour? Is it possible? Do you guys think it's there? To me, I'm gonna say yes, because I think Shai is the perfect athlete for it. Like, he fits all 5 pillars. I mean, at least the 3 pillars that are in his control, he fits perfectly. Success on the court, authenticity, and personality. He has them all 3. I feel like Converse is right there in figuring out the design and the marketing. They are not far off at all, and just a little bit more execution, and I really think all 5 are perfectly filled out. And yeah, I guess I really want to know what you guys think. Is there anything you disagree with what I'm saying? Do you guys think Converse could be doing better? What do you think of the shoe? Do you like any of the colorways? Do you like how they rolled it out? Let me know. I'm very curious. I believe that they are very close, and I actually do believe that Shai is going to create some serious buzz because they're going to keep winning for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and he's probably got another 1 or 2 MVPs in him, and I just think it's all there for the taking because the shoe market's oversaturated. I mentioned in the Ant video that the shoe market right now is just kind of dead, so anything that garners some sort of buzz, people really flock to, and I think this is right there. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next one.